The government is taking the first step towards overhauling the much-maligned Resource Management Act. Environment Minister David Parker says a shake-up is necessary because a 30-year-old law is too complex, expensive and has failed to protect the environment. However, National says the timing of the RMA review is cynical because any recommendations won't be implemented before next year's election. Political reporter Yvette McCullough has more.
David Parker says the RMA has failed to fulfil its intended purpose. He says freshwater quality is going backwards, and while not the sole cause, planning rules are partly to blame for the country's housing crisis.
It takes too long, it costs too much, and it hasn't protected the environment. It is unacceptable for this cornerstone law to be underperforming in a country which so values the protection of the environment while also wanting to properly house our people.
The review panel will look at all aspects of the law with a view to identifying ways to improve environmental protections, cut the red tape and the cost of urban development. It will also consider whether there should be separate laws for land use planning and the environment. David Parker says time for tinkering with the RMA is over.
Further ad hoc patch-ups and workarounds are not the answer. A thorough overhaul of the law is. The review needs to address urban development, environmental bottom lines, and effective but not overly complex participation, including by Maori.
The review panel will be chaired by retired appeal court judge Tony Randerson. He was involved in reviewing the initial legislation in 1991. So, with the benefit of hindsight, where does he think things went wrong for the RMA?
Well, that's probably the $64,000 question, but there are
$64 billion question. Actually.
$64 billion. Yeah. But I think there's a general consensus. The functioning of the RMA has been hampered by a lack of national direction.
The panel will report back with recommendations, including draft law changes, by the middle of next year. But that won't be soon enough for changes to be implemented before the next election. National's Judith Collins is accusing the government of kicking it for touch because it's out of ideas.
It's good that the government has finally acknowledged that they can't work out what to do themselves, but the bad thing is that it's pretty cynical timing. It'll be a problem for the next government to deal with. David Parker and the Labour Party would have been far smarter to have actually just reached across to us, as I've been saying, for the last 18 months.
You know, we're interested in help from anyone who sincerely wants to help. We would note that she had 9 years to fix it in government and left it in a mess.
But even if the recommendations were made in time, getting all government parties on the same page is likely to be challenging. Winston Peters is already doubting that his party will see eye to eye with the Greens.
Well, I've seen some of their comments, and with the greatest of respect, I cannot agree with that race-based approach to fundamental issues which are to do with the human rights of every New Zealander, regardless of what your background is.
While an RMA overhaul is at least an election away, the government will soon introduce a bill that it says will fix some of the more straightforward issues. This will include reversing some of the changes National made in 2017, restoring some previously excluded public participation, and improving processes. From Parliament for Checkpoint, Yvette McCullough.